All right. How's everyone doing? Good evening or good morning, wherever you are. It's evening here. Johnny, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. Good, mate. Evening for me,
Yeah.
but just drank a couple of cups of tea to make sure I'm awake.
Yeah, I was gonna make some coffee, but I gotta be up early, so I like to just go to bed after this and not stay up too late. But
That's why I went with tea. Coffee's for the morning.
yeah. Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. We're gonna be doing an Illuvium Zero Town Hall with Johnny, your most knowledgeable resource on that. So this is going to be recorded, so it'll go on the Illuvium Plus channel on YouTube afterwards. It'll probably be by the morning, but like I said, I'm going to try and get to bed after this. But yeah, we can jump right into it. It'll be recorded, so if anybody asks, you can just let them know. It'll be up probably tomorrow midday. And then, yeah, we have a lot of questions to go through. Dr. Spoon and some other people submitted quite a few questions. So we will kind of go through a list of this stuff. It'll probably answer a lot of your questions if you guys have any. And once we get to the end, if we still have some time, we'll be able to take some questions from the audience if you guys still have any. But I imagine Johnny will probably answer a lot of them as we go through this.
Yeah, I might add to that just a little bit of a disclaimer that we'll be talking about general direction. We won't be giving financial advice, of course. Um, Things like parameters and so on that aren't ratified in an IIP or ICCP are obviously subject to change. Although, of course, I'll do my best to give as accurate information as I can.
All right. Yep. As always, everything's subject to change with the DAO, right? All right. Well, let's jump right into it. I'll just go down the list like we have that I sent to you, Johnny, and we'll start here at the top. Um, will Illuvium Zero be playable on Apple devices by open beta? How's
So, start with a tough question because there's not a simple answer. I assume here we mean iOS. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
think there'll
yeah.
be any
For
issue
iPhone.
playing on Mac. So, look, we've connected with Apple, but we haven't made any progress on getting a green light for NFTs on their store. So that means it's highly unlikely iOS with blockchain connection, iOS native with blockchain connection will be released for open beta. We are looking to do two things. The first, as we've talked about, is that the WebGL version will run on iOS. We test that from time to time to make sure it's still chugging along. The second thing is, now I don't know if this is strictly aligned with open beta, but as everyone I'm sure is aware, we've always planned to have some kind of free-to-play version of Illuvium Zero. If the free-to-play version of Illuvium Zero is not blockchain connected, then there shouldn't be any issues getting it onto the Apple Store. Now, will that be day one of the open beta? Open beta, possibly not, but hopefully, not too much later.
All right. Yeah, that's what I wouldn't mind playing on WebGL on the phone, right? Too bad. Nice compromise. Let's see here. Okay, so what about so the next question is referring to will version updates. I think like I don't know the exact term we use for it, but like how Arena just patches in client now so you don't have to download a new version every time. So
Again, I'd love to be able to just say a categorical yes. It's a little bit trickier than that. Certainly, to support the Google Store, we will need to support bundles, basically splitting up the application and all the different high quality artworks that we have into separate pieces, um, such that when you start playing, it will actually download the different pieces it needs. We will prioritize that. So if you only have something in Tiger Boreal, then you only need to download those assets. However, from time to time, there may still be major patches, major changes that will require a full update. So I would say for the most part, yes, it will be partial updates, but there's always that chance that occasionally there will be full updates.
Okay. Good deal. Okay, let's keep moving along. What balancing changes can we expect for the beta? Paths, converters, landmarks, efficiency. I guess just generally, how are you guys moving forward with balancing currently?
Okay, so this is one that I'm glad I have a cup of tea for. Else I'm going to run out of voice. I'll try and keep it fairly succinct. Let's just tackle the simple things first. So minor balance updates to things like extractors, converters. We probably push converters just down a little bit. We've increased landmarks effect just a little bit. And the efficiency system and how it operates in general hasn't changed. However, there are a couple of pretty significant balance changes with regards to how paths work and with regards to how power stations work. So paths was one of the first tasks that our game designer Dimitri took on as part of his Illuvium Zero work. And paths will now work with more along the lines of the original intent, which was the more connected a building is to other buildings, the faster it will build. Right. So rather than this kind of very artificial path drawn around the outside of each structure, now the paths will actually be used like a path. So if there's a path from one structure to another, that will make a small increase in efficiency, a decrease in build times. And the more connected it becomes, the larger that decrease becomes. Now, the cap is still the same. So the final value it arrives at is still the same. But the way that you get there is a little bit different. And this is in service of a few things. One is just it makes more sense, but also in service of being able to give a chance for a little more space in the plots. I'm really keen on aesthetic city design, and the more we can ensure that empty space or free space doesn't impact efficiency or build times, the more opportunity there is for people to make plots that are not only efficient but beautiful. Power stations, that's a segue directly into power stations, because power stations are going to be changed quite significantly, so it will be quite different for people. The main thing we wanted to avoid was just this idea that you surround something with power stations no matter what it is, and it gets more and more efficient up to the max. What we're going to do instead is there is basically a max efficiency boost that power can provide. And it's almost like asking the question, is this building powered? Right? So, or to what level is this building powered? And if a building is fully powered, maybe that's through having one large upgraded power station, or maybe that's through having 4 or 5 small nearby power stations. Whichever way it is, if a building is fully powered, then it gives the maximum efficiency increase that power can give. So the efficiency increase is not tied to the individual power station structures anymore. It's tied to this notion of, is this building powered by having enough nearby power stations? And as I mentioned, leveling up power stations is now meaningful because they give you more power. So you can have less power stations and still reach your fully powered state. This will come with some UI changes. So there's like a bubble or an icon in the efficiency view now that shows, are we powered up, or how much power does this structure have? Power still applies an effect on efficiency, but it's through this notion of being powered up. Again, that hopefully leads to a little bit more opportunity for some free space and for people to build optimized plots, which can also be aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. Instead of having paths everywhere that some people used to have.
I mean, there still will be paths, lots of paths and stuff like that, but there's a little bit more facility for expression.
Yeah. All right. Makes sense. Upgrading power gives you more power. All right. What about quality of life updates coming? A lot of people don't like the leveling up pop up, big harvesting bubbles, and just general quality of life changes that you can.
So I don't know if I'm going to be able to name all of these off the top of my head, because I'm not actually playing alpha very much at all. In fact, I didn't play enough to get my blueprints in the end. I was too busy playing on the test and the beta stream. But there's some I can answer specifically. So level up pop-ups are going away unless that level up actually awards you something. The probably biggest quality of life improvement is the ability to have activities auto start. So when they complete, you acknowledge them rather than having to click the structure again, pick the activity, confirm the cost, which may even be zero. You can tick a box to say auto start this activity, which means that at the point you acknowledge it, it will just start again. Now we still want to keep acknowledging, right? We want people to interact with the game and click on things, and collecting all your stuff is kind of a key part of this type of game. However, very much acknowledge the frustration of having to do 5 clicks for something that we've now replaced with 1. Other quality of life improvements like the zoom out. In the beta stream, you can zoom out much further. I'm sure there's more. I don't know, Rich, if any pop to your head or if anyone in the chat, I can see the chat. So if anyone has any others that they want to talk about specifically. I see one-click plot switching. I don't think it's 1 click. I think it's 2-click plot switching, but I don't think that's too bad for switching between plots.
I think another one was I don't know if it's a question later, but like being able to identify your plots easier. Like if you have like a lot of plots, being able to identify them in the menu easier. Like which one you were just playing on. I don't know how they want. I know I saw a question about it. That's why I was bringing it up, but
at this stage I would say no. Now, I haven't checked the latest version. I've been on leave for a while. This is my first week back, and I just downloaded the new version to start playtesting today. I want to be clear that post-open beta, the intent is to get the world map into the client. So, and with all the filtering options and so on. So I'm not sure if that makes it necessarily easier to do it, identify your plots. I think to some extent, particularly if they're not together, you may learn where they are in the world and you know what region they're in and so on. But that's mainly being added because it just looks cool. But hopefully that will address that to some extent. When we're doing that piece of work, that's probably a good time to add more filters and maybe things like plot nicknames or something like that.
yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was that next question right there, basically too. So yeah, you took care of that. All right, let's keep going. Is there any benefit to keeping lands in a single wallet besides mega cities? And I think this pretty much segues into mega cities anyways, because there's multiple questions about mega cities. So I guess, yeah, that question, and then what can you tell us about mega cities that is finalized or that you think?
Well, let's answer the specific question about keeping lands in one wallet first. I mean, we just talked about one of the benefits, right? Is that you can switch between them more readily. Um, the look immediately, probably not, but we you want to encourage this idea that we have interrelated games, that you move things between games. I expect over time there will be rewards around the activity that you make in different games. If that activity is not connected to your account, then it's going to be difficult to give out those or identify those rewards. So, yeah, I think by default you should probably aim to keep everything in one wallet or maybe two wallets if you want a hardware wallet for your more expensive assets or whatever it may be. So I think there are benefits to keeping them together, but nothing very specifically planned right now.
And I think, I don't know, I could be way off base here, but I'm just going off of what I've experienced so far with the passport. Like I set up my passport on my own. And I think that might be, depending on how we do it, I don't know exactly how we're going to do it yet, but like passport's pretty cool because it creates you that wallet and then you can connect multiple wallets to it and still use all the assets from it. So that might be something in the future that, because I don't know, personally, I don't like to keep all my stuff in one wallet, right? But
yeah, from a security perspective, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
And as I said, I think two wallets for sure, but at I guess diminishing returns the more wallets you have.
Yeah. All right, we'll keep going along here. Blueprints. Do we have an exact process for minting blueprints yet? Requirements, materials, variations.
Sorry, minting or crafting? I mean,
Oh,
I'll answer both because this is a little unclear. So minting blueprints is basically just like it was in alpha, right? Once you've discovered them, you click mint, and a little bit later you get your blueprint. Obviously, the blueprint minting had a few bugs early on, and for the first week or so, with the anti-cheat protection and stuff like that. That won't be an issue in the beta because it's all server side, but there's no requirements to mint. That you don't have to pay gas or anything like that. I don't know if this is also a question about crafting. So, crafting's in the overworld. It's not something I'm an expert in, but basically, to mint mint the skin or the skinned item attached that the blueprint is associated with, you need a whole bunch of ingredients, right? You need the blueprint itself, which is like the recipe. So the blueprint won't be destroyed when you use it. It's a recipe. But you then also need the item that matches the blueprint. You need the dyes that match the blueprint. You need the skin that matches the blueprint. So you get the skins by burning the Illuvials. If you wanted a rampfire skinned item, you would have to burn rampfires to create a rampfire skin, which you would then use in crafting with your blueprint to eventually give you the skinned version of your item. Yeah, so full crafting recipes and all of that sort of stuff probably best reserved for an overworld chat, but that's the general idea.
yeah. And we can always get on.
Good point. I just noting in chat that fuel is required to research blueprints. Fuel is also required to craft blueprints.
Okay.
Solon specifically.
Solon. All
When I
right.
say craft, right, craft items, not craft blueprints. I should speak correctly.
Yeah, I think that question was about crafting, just based on the requirements and materials. But yeah, maybe not. Either way, you took care of them both. So, um, okay. What about future additions, like future plans for blueprints? Will there be other use cases, like other things they can skin? I guess battle boards, weapons.
I mean, I don't have an answer for you here. I would say
Yeah.
Very likely over the years and years that we build out this IP and add features and so on, that there will be other things, but nothing's planned, nothing's locked down.
Okay. Um. Okay, this is if a 2x2 megacity research blueprints on one plot, will it count for the entire mega city at open beta?
Yes. So a mega city, once it's formed, it just operates like one plot in all ways, right? So it's just a plot that's bigger, that has more space for buildings, that has some special rules around how the bonuses are applied from the tiers of the plots that make it up. But otherwise, for all intents and purposes, it's a single plot.
Good deal. Same applies for all megacities. 3x3. Is that the
Yeah,
largest
of
we're
course, of
going?
course.
As far as
At this point, 2x2 and 3x3 are the only things that are in. The
okay.
tech doesn't care what the shape or size is, so there's certainly possibility for people to get excited about different sizes and shapes, and raise a community discussion and IIP to get other things in. But as it stands, 2x2 and 3x3 are in.
Okay. All right. If blueprints are purchased off market now, is research some sort of or any sort of research still required when open beta comes out, other than the
So
crafting, I guess?
right now, the plan 100% yes. So buying a blueprint doesn't mean that you've researched that blueprint. What we are looking to do, we haven't built this yet, but what we are looking to do is to ensure that people who are in the alpha who research that blueprint, when they transition to beta, meaning their same account with the same plot, it will have pre-researched and pre-scanned the alluvial biodata and the blueprint for the alpha blueprints that they found. However, purchasing off the market is just buying an NFT. The minted NFT is not associated with research.
All right. The next question, I'm thinking this is based on open beta, but it says what progress will be saved on your plot? Does trading a plot lose all progress?
No, it's actually this is a very good and somewhat complex question. Well, not so much complex, but certainly structures are not lost. So when you build up a plot and you build up all your structures, if you sell that NFT and someone else buys it and connects an Illuvium account and logs in and starts playing it, then all those same structures will be on the plot. Your scanning and research will be lost. Okay. And that's primarily around sort of avoiding misuse of the system, abuse of the system, where people just trade or transfer plots to different addresses and meet the blueprint a second time or a third time or whatnot. You will lose any fuel, but of course you would raise sell orders for the fuel before you sold your plot. So theoretically, if you sold it without selling your fuel, then you would lose that fuel. And the same for resources. Resources are lost. So the idea would be that when you're about to sell your plot, you would use up all the resources that you can. You would raise sell orders for any fuel that you still have. And then you would put your plot up for sale and periodically make sure that any new fuel you generate before it's sold goes up for sale so you don't lose that fuel.
Easy enough. All right. When you raise it,
Just in answer to the question around raising a sell order.
yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna.
so a sell order doesn't take the fuel out of storage until the sell order is completed. However, if you sell your land plot, you then have what we called a disconnected sell order. So at that point, so you don't lose your sell orders by selling your plot.
You destroy all converters, sell all fuel, and lock a plot into void.
Yes, is the short answer. So you could basically mean that people would be starting again. This is something we want to work on, though. We understand that there is value in building up a plot, and that people may be able to enhance a plot for the buy a plot, enhance it, and then sell it. But there is risk to the buyer that they could think they're buying one thing, because on the world map you will be able to see the structures that are on a plot, and not confirmed for open beta, but if not by open beta very soon after, you'll be able to do all the plots on the structures on the world map. But that means that, as Scorax has said, then someone could kind of pull the rug and say, here's my beautiful plot, and then destroy everything before it gets sold and leave the person with a bit of a bad taste in their mouth. We will need to address this somehow. We don't have a great answer, but it's probably something along the lines of, when it gets put up for sale, it locks certain actions. But it won't be an open beta feature. Hopefully soon after, but it's just, we've got to make some things, draw a line about what we're delivering, and that feature unfortunately won't be available for open beta. So basically, buyer beware. Assume that your plot has nothing on it is the safe bet until we get that locking feature in.
All right. We'll keep moving along here. In-game economy. So, how transactions like selling fuel or resources will work once everything's all hooked up on blockchain.
So there's two things to sort of disambiguate here. The first is the in-game resources, and the second is blockchain resources. So even once we're fully integrated with the blockchain, the resources, the elements and fuel that you have stored in your Illuvium Zero plot are not blockchain resources until you sell them. Okay, so think of it like the blockchain resources, the ERC20 tokens are like almost like options or bonds or something like that. And the resources on your plot are like physical resources. So the physical resources on your plot live in your plot until you sell them, at which point they're removed from your plot. Once they're sold, they become blockchain resources, ERC20 tokens, which can then be moved around and then used and so on. For resources and also for fuel, you can also trade on the in-game marketplace, right? So the in-game marketplace in the alpha was obviously baked, but the behavior is quite similar. You can put up for sale an amount of elements or amount of fuel in exchange for a different kind of element or a different kind of fuel. I see there's a question in chat about proximity. So the in-game marketplace in beta works based on proximity. So the further you are from someone, the longer it takes for that order to complete. I think this is pretty neat because it gives some incentive for clans and friends to build close to each other so that they can trade resources more quickly than if they're on the other side of the world. So in-game resources traded on the in-game marketplace. Once they're sold on the fuel exchange, they become blockchain resources. That only applies for fuel. It doesn't apply for elements. Elements can't be sold on the blockchain.
So I guess that kind of answered the next question, which is, I think, if I understood you correctly, which is, can fuel be stored outside of the Illuvium ecosystem? Which I would say,
100%. So fuel is ERC20 token, and there's a Solomon token, there's a Hyperion token, there's a Krypton token. It's natively generated on IMX. In terms of when you buy fuel on the fuel exchange, you get IMX ERC20 tokens, but if you want, you can move them to layer 1. You can send them around on layer 1. They're certainly stored outside of once they become a blockchain resource.
Yep. The question in the chat, is there anything in place to prevent fuel price spoofing and manipulation like an Oracle?
I think that's a challenging question to answer without explaining all of the details of how the fuel exchange works, which unfortunately is a little bit out of scope here. If the intent is to increase the price of fuel, firstly, there's a max fuel price cap as per IIP 39, I think it was. So from a buyer's perspective, what happens is they say, I want to buy 50 fuel and there's a fixed price. I'm going to say $1 for the simplicity of explanation. That is not the max fuel price cap. Talk about that a little bit later, but let's say it was $1. Then they would get 50 fuel for $50, 50 solons for $50. Then, based on the orders in the system, they would get extra fuel, right? So if there's actually 100 fuel on sale for 50 cents, they would get, for $50, they would get their 50 fuel plus 50 bonus fuel. This is something that was raised in the IIP, and it's a really cool idea. I can't remember who on the council come up with it, but the idea is to make it really simple for overworld players who are not necessarily Web3 natives to just see, hey, travel costs this much, I need this many fuel, and it will cost me this much. And then when they buy it, what's actually happening underneath is they even get bonus fuel, right? So, hey, I was going to spend $5 to go and do these few travel activities, but actually I can do an extra travel activity because underlying the system is an order book where it's fulfilling these orders from the fuel orders raised by, or sell orders raised by the landholders, meaning that it's a great user experience for those guys, and for those who really know what's going on underlying is an order book. So yeah, it's a really cool system, and I'm think it's if it was Seaton or whoever came up with it, it's really cool, and I've really enjoyed I spent a lot of time sort of documenting the requirements about how all that works, and yeah, it's really cool.
All right.
So that doesn't specifically address the question, but because of that structure, that way that's set up, you can't really spoof the price. Like if you put your things up for sale cheaply, then you don't necessarily buy them. You just sold your fuel cheaply to someone else, right?
Okay, so long-term plan for in-game revenue sharing, pricing and fuel, and other in-game sells like coins, builders, etc.
I think this one was covered in a general sense.
Yeah.
And sorry, I just see people are still talking about spoofing. I guess the point is that the fuel exchange system always meets a buyer's order with the lowest price available, right? So you can't choose to buy from a certain seller. The system will always find you the cheapest order. So that removes, I'm sure there's some potential for price manipulation if you have enough fuel and enough ETH to make really big moves, but it removes a pretty significant mechanism that most of that kind of whitewashing and stuff relies on. Anyway, I think the details of that conversation probably best left to when we publish like a technical document about how the fuel exchange works. Let's jump into those next questions.
Okay.
So, yes, you've already asked the question, so let me jump into that. What is the long-term plan for sharing revenue that comes from other games or from IIP and so on? So the IIP had a sort of general outline of this. Basically, the idea is, as again, most of you probably know, the target is 5% of the game revenue goes to the landholders. What we'll do is, from time to time, the council hasn't voted on a specific period of time, but I would say something like quarterly, so 4 times a year, we would look at how much revenue has come in from the games, how much revenue has been paid to the landholders. And if we see that there's a discrepancy where the landholders aren't getting the revenue that we're due, we would do a payout, right? Where we just go, here's how much is owed, here's all the landholders. They will be weighted by tier. So a tier 4 person would have more, a plot would have more shares in the pool. But effectively, each share in the pool would be given a certain amount of ETH. That would be distributed in a similar way to our other rewards, like we do for the Beyond Leaderboard rewards or something like that. The system will do most of that automatically. It will generate the transactions and so on, but it will, at this point, need to be signed by the EDAO, so multiple people will have to sign that. In answer to the question, yes, even plots that are not playing will get money, but remember, the intent is to balance it so that that amount is very small. If we see that, there's a larger discrepancy, like it's 5% or something like that, then potentially, as been mentioned, we could base it on something like fuel sales and so on. But that gets quite tricky, right? Because if someone's I'm not even going to go into the details of it, but there's a lot more potential for manipulation in that case. So again, definitely something open to IIP, something we've thought about. And if we do see that that discrepancy is large, then 100% we would want to do something more, because obviously we want the people who are playing and the people who are playing well to get the rewards.
No sitting on your plot and collecting, huh?
Yeah, well, as I said, it will be for a start. The initial, however many months will, maybe it's a couple of quarterly payouts or whatever, will be like that. But we're not expecting that to be a significant portion of revenue, right? It might be a few percent, hopefully. There shouldn't be a large discrepancy. And if there is, we can also do things like change the share of the fuel pool, right? So at the moment, we're doing the 5% directly enforced in the fuel exchange, but that's a parameter. We could make that 5.5, right? To make sure that, this discrepancy, if it exists, is reduced.
Yeah. So I guess the next question, kind of related to that in a way, is do we have, or do you want to talk about the a targeted max fuel output ratio between the tiers and how we're determining that, or if anything like that is set yet?
So, look, I think this is best answered by talking a little bit about how balancing should work in the short term and the long term. If we imagine there's two extremes to balancing, one is basically we release the game with its parameters, we never touch it again. Obviously, that's an extreme case. At the opposite end would be we constantly, maybe daily, maybe hourly, maybe even an automated system, which is constantly changing the game parameters so that we're achieving some exact balance between lots or between tiers or whatever. That is equally as crazy, right? Because it basically means there's no knowledge to be gained about how the game works, and it's effectively almost taking the gameplay out of it, right? So the best spot is probably somewhere in the middle. When we first launch, it will be more towards the lots of change, right? It is absolutely going to be a period of volatility where, we notice discrepancies. Maybe, some of the new features are more imbalanced than we thought, or maybe we want to introduce new features that will shift the balance in certain ways and so on. There'll be lots of changes at the start, and the idea is that over time that amount of change will reduce. So we haven't set a specific schedule, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly or something like that, but there will certainly be a lot of change early on. It'll be highly volatile in terms of the game balance. And then over time, we'll peg that back as we get better and better at predicting the system and modeling behavior and so on. So with that in mind, what's the ratio we want to use between the different tiers? I think the answer is none. what I consider the best metric, best target to use for a start is the relative price of the NFTs of different tiers, right? So, we've got this multiple of 3 that we use all over the place. The initial starting prices weren't quite aligned to multiple of 3; they're a little bit off. But if you look at the actual sale prices and so on, and all of the metrics about boosts and so on, that multiple of 3 is in place. So the default position, the ICCP or IIP potentially that we raise, will be balancing. For the initial balancing will be based around keeping those tiers, the value of the NFTs in those tiers as factors of 3. So if tier 1 is X, then tier 2 should be priced roughly around 3X. I think if we're keeping that ratio for a start, then we're doing pretty well. Over time, we probably don't want that to happen, right? Because over time, we want it to be much more free market. But I think that's a starting point. Now, again, this is going to be a period of volatility. If we find that that's not working, maybe for whatever reason, tier 4 prices go crazy or whatever, and people like that and they want tier 4 prices to be crazy. I'm sure the tier 4 holders want that. But maybe the whole community wants that. Then we may set other metrics. But we have some internal measures that we are using as a rough sort of indicator of fuel output. But the primary metric that will be balanced against for a start during this highly volatile period are the prices of the tiers aligned with this factor of 3 model. That will 100% go out in an IIP before we launch, because it is something that some people will hold very dear to their hearts and may have very different ideas. But certainly that's how I've been thinking about balancing and what I've been pushing as the metric to use for the team.
Good deal. Moving along. Nothing. Okay. Botting insecurity. Have you thought about policies on botting? Is it something we want to punish? I think Aaron spoke on it before, but I'm not sure where we're at now with it.
So we are prepping a anti-botting policy statement. I'm just typing a reply to Scoriax in chat. I should probably just say it. But anyway, I think we can take that one. We'll move to botting insecurity. So we're prepping a policy for anti-botting and cheating responses, punishments, detection, and so on. We will need the council to agree on that. I think everyone agrees that we shouldn't encourage bots. We shouldn't make it better to use bots or even similar to use bots. Players should have an advantage. We should detect bots. We should ban them. But obviously, when we're talking about NFTs, which we don't have control of once they're minted, it gets a little harder. So there will be a policy coming out. The anti-cheat working group is preparing that policy for submission to the council probably in the next few weeks. Council will share it with the community. There'll be discussion. We'll hopefully get agreement. All I can say is, that obvious pain point where banning doesn't mean much if you've already extracted all the NFT value from your assets. So for Illuvium Zero, maybe it's a little more favorable than some of the other games because there is some value in the game world as well, the things you've built up and so on. But definitely a tough one.
Yeah. All right. I think everyone's been waiting for this one. Rewards and incentives. Talking about long-term holder rewards, parameters for plot rewards, and will these things...
Yeah, so, I can't talk about specifics. I think it was discussed in the Illuvium Zero channel that I put forward a pitch for rewards for people who have held or are holding land. Council has agreed in principle, and they're refining those parameters, but I don't think they'll be shared before the rewards will basically become live because potential for manipulation. So the parameters are not finalized; they're almost finalized. There will be some kind of reward for holding land, and those announcements will come out through the official announcement channels, hopefully pretty soon.
Good deal. And that'll answer the next question too, honestly. All the details will come once that's all done and approved. Okay, we already went over the iOS, about iOS. It says question about Unity, long-term plan for Unity issues. But
I mean, the Unity issues are more about principles and morals rather than business, right? So there's an interesting discussion to be had in the long term with the DAO and the community whether we agree with Unity's stance on game development, and how they've adjusted their terms over time and kind of had some pretty abusive practices, some might argue. But the reality is the changes they were pushing don't affect a game of our size, right? In fact, I think it works out more cost effective for us rather than less in a number of ways. So it's not an issue for us from a business perspective, but it is potentially an issue from us from a community and our perspective, whether for future games maybe we stop using Unity and just always go with Unreal, or maybe start looking at Godot or whatever it may be.
They kind of backpedaled there pretty quickly after their last announcements, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think I posted that I thought that was intentional.
Yeah.
Before they did it, right? They sort of come out with the most aggressive, crazy, ridiculous plan, and then when everyone screams, they just launch their actual plan that they always plan to do along. And they were hoping that they look like a friendly and responsive company, but unfortunately, it didn't really play out that way for them.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we already kind of answered these, except the details on megacities, such as the number of tiles, which you already said, 2x2 and 3x3. I guess, will you be able to see your whole megacity when we can zoom out?
Not at this stage. So the zoom is basically limited to the size of one plot, just for performance reasons. Unfortunately, with all these beautiful pieces of art, they do start to add up if you get hundreds of them on screen. Look, it may be something that on the PC version, there's a little flag you can tick to allow more zoom or something like that. I have pitched, but it is not built yet, a little like mini map for quickly scrolling around the bigger mega cities. I think that will be a quick one to build. So I don't know if it'll make open beta, but it certainly won't be far away.
Okay. Let me see here. I think this question, saying visual representation of alpha blueprint, I think they're saying like which skin the blueprint actually will make. Like if we
So this question says that what is the visual representation of the alpha blueprint, specifically arrangement drone skins, or will it be in? I mean, I think there's been a number of leaks of what these skins look like. The skinned items, the skinned items for the ranger suits will be in open beta confirmed, and the drone skins are being finalized. They looks like it's going to be done, but not 100% lock from what I understand. Again, if they're not there, they'll be there soon after. I do want to note though that as awesome as I think those skinned items look, they're not in their final state. So at the moment, to facilitate the release of these hundreds of skinned items, they're focused on texture-based changes. And what the hope is eventually is there will be more geometry-based changes. I think hopefully the audience is sort of reasonably familiar enough with 3D to know what that means. But basically, the shape of all of the different items will be the same or very similar. There are some small changes across stages, and it'll mostly be the textures and effects that change color and patterns and so on. But they will get better over time in terms of more changes to geometry and so on.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of skins. Definitely looking pretty good too. Okay. 2 more, and then I think we got a little bit of time. Yeah, we're almost right at an hour. We got some time to open some questions to the community if they have any more. Availability of blueprints at open beta launch.
Okay, so I'll set one. Biodata and blueprints are planned for open beta launch.
Oh, parameters for the systems explained in IIP 39. Automated land
I sort
sales.
of touched on this a little bit before. The max, or I said I would touch on it, so let me touch on it. The max fuel cap price has not been finalized. I think Dimitri, Aaron, and Ben have now a proposal that they want to take to council for what they think the prices of things should be. So it's their proposal is not just what is the max fuel price cap, it's what is the price of all this kind of travel operation, how many kryptons does it take, and therefore tied in with the max fuel price cap, how much does it cost at most. They've got a proposal with all the actions, all the proposed costs, as well as proposed value for the max fuel price cap. But none of that's locked in, and maybe as an example, maybe they say travel is the layer 1 travel is, or stage 1 travel is tier 1 travel. I'll get it right eventually. Is I don't know, $2, and Solon, it's 2 Solons, 2 Kryptons, and Kryptons are $1 each, so it's $2. Maybe council comes back and says, although we like that price, we want to make sure that there's more room for cheaper things in the future, right? So rather than being 2 Solons, we want that to be 20 Solons. So instead of Solon, max fuel cap price of $1, we want to change the max fuel price cap to 10 cents. So what we're doing for Illuvium Zero is making sure that all those parameters can all be scaled together, right? So it doesn't matter if we need to generate 1 million Solons or 10 million Solons, the balance will all shift together. But yeah, that information will get to the council very soon. 100% will be community discussion. Obviously, pricing is a big one for a lot of different people. And then Illuvium Zero will just update that to reflect, or update their balancing parameters to reflect whatever that sort of final landing price is.
How much time do you have left, Johnny? Do you got time to answer some more questions?
I've got a meeting in 5 minutes. I probably need at least 1 minute to soothe my aching throat and get another cup of tea. So I've got what, 4 minutes or so.
Okay. Well, let's just. I worry about bringing someone up because sometimes it takes more than 4 minutes for someone to ask their question. But let's give it a shot. Erica Gloom.
Hello. I would like to ask about the changes of the converter for the fuel. If you don't play in this moment in the alpha, after the work is done, you can move the converter and maximize his efficiency.
Yeah, so that's obviously a symptom of the client side alpha, or maybe not obviously, but it is a symptom of the client side authoritative alpha. So in the beta, we will calculate efficiency across the lifetime of the activity. So if you moved it right at the end, it would have 0 effect. If you removed it if you moved it halfway, it would have some effect, noting that while an activity is in progress, you won't be able to move it either. But your passive collection would continue.
Okay, thank you. So for the same reason, the scanner and then the researcher will have this medium efficiency for the 24-hour of research and scanning too.
Yeah, so there's, as I said, two protections that apply to all structures. There is one, you can't move something while it has an operation in progress or an activity in progress. That still doesn't totally prevent the issue because you could move the other buildings around it. However, as I said, the efficiency of that activity is calculated across the lifetime of the activity. It's not just the value at the end.
Will it be possible to send fuel between plots? I think you answered that possibly.
So it's not possible to send fuel between plots without using the marketplace, right? So you could use the marketplace to send fuel between your plots with the associated time travel and so on, but just note that someone else could also pick up your order. So you could exchange fuel between plots. You can't send fuel between plots. For open beta, we definitely have spoken about being able to use, being able to pull fuel into your plots as an activity from the blockchain or from your other plots. It's still something we want to do, but it's just not, unfortunately, going to be beta.
Okay. Well, with that, we will let you go, Johnny, with about 2 minutes.
Okay. I mean, I think maybe one more of these before launch or at launch or something like that might be good, because I think when we have pricing out and things like that, it will give us a lot more information, and it might be nice to have one more chat. But anyway,
Yep,
thank
definitely.
you guys.
Yep,
I will we'll drop out now, and it was nice chatting to you all.
All right, appreciate it, Johnny. Okay. Thank you everybody for coming. This is all recorded, like I said. It'll be up on the YouTube Plus channel. I'll link it in the IZ chat. We'll link it on social media. It'll be everywhere you need it to be to find it. It'll probably be about 12 hours from now. So yeah, it'll just be a little bit of time, but then it will be posted for everyone to listen to. So, and you heard Johnny, we'll do another one in a little while. So you can get more questions together. We answered about, 30 plus. So, and I think G Hamster, I think there is new music. I'm pretty sure. So, at least from what I read somewhere. I haven't heard it yet, but I think there is. So, thanks everyone for joining. And yeah, we'll talk to you later, guys.